Hello and welcome to the TechViews 10X studio. Look, I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us for today's explainer because the AI community is completely buzzing right now. We are diving headfirst into Anthropic's massive August 2026 update. Seemingly out of nowhere, the company announced that Claude is now invisibly watermarking its outputs. And let me tell you, the internet is just overflowing with panic and, frankly, absolute misinformation about what this means for your data, your code, and your intellectual property. So, can you tell if an AI wrote this? Historically, the answer has always been a murky, hesitant maybe. But Anthropic is actively trying to change that. Now, what's really fascinating here is the massive gap between what the public thinks this new Claude watermark does and the actual boots-on-the-ground technical reality. You've got people literally trying to scrub hidden characters out of their documents, or assuming this means Claude is suddenly claiming ownership of their proprietary code. Well, today, we're going to clear all of that up and look strictly at the facts. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be covering the invisible AI watermark, how the watermark works, why provenance is not proof, the developer and creator backlash, and finally, adapting your AI strategy. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the invisible AI watermark, focusing on EU regulations and the global rollout. Okay, the absolute most crucial point is this date, August 2nd, 2026. This isn't just some random, quirky product update. Anthropic signed the EU AI Act's Article 50.2 Code of Practice on Transparency. Basically, this mandates that AI-generated content must be machine-readable. So any Claude model launched on or after this August 2nd cutoff date is now marked. But here's the real kicker. They didn't just apply this to Europe. Anthropic rolled this out worldwide. It doesn't matter if you're in Berlin, Bangalore, or Boise. There is literally no non-EU region where you get unmarked output. And no, there is no opt-out toggle. Moving on to Section 2, how the watermark works, looking at the two distinct marking mechanisms. Let's look at the first mechanism, which is used for files. Whenever Claude generates an image, it attaches what's called C2PA metadata. Think of it as a cryptographically signed manifest that just rides alongside the file. But it has a fatal flaw. It is trivially easy to strip off. If you simply resave that PNG through a basic image tool, convert the format, or honestly, just take a screenshot, that entire metadata manifest is totally gone. And you know, this brilliantly illustrates why the text watermark is the much, much bigger story here. When we compare them, C2PA metadata just sits next to the file and is super fragile. The text watermark, however, that sits inside the content itself. Anthropic explicitly states that this watermark travels with the text when you copy and paste it, and it can even persist through some editing. You absolutely cannot just strip it away by pasting it into a plain text editor. So how does this text watermark actually work in practice? Well, let's bust a major online myth right now. You might have seen free tools popping up claiming they can remove the watermark by deleting hidden zero-width Unicode characters. Spoiler alert, that accomplishes absolutely nothing against Claude. The reality is something called statistical token bias. As Claude generates text, it picks from near-equivalent next words. The watermark is actually a super subtle, key-driven nudge in Claude's statistical word choices. Over a long enough passage, a detector holding the key can measure if the text word distribution deviates from chance in a specific, mathematically expected direction. It's kind of like loading the dice. Section 3, provenance is not proof. Let's talk about the real limitations of AI detection. I want to read this candid admission directly from Anthropic's own technical documentation. Quote, "The output can carry a Claude mark even if the underlying ideas, text, or data originated from another source." I want you to really think about what this means. Let's say you write an entirely original legal brief or a complex academic paper, and you ask Claude to simply proofread it for typos. Guess what? Your completely original human-authored document now carries an invisible machine-generated marker. Let's break down exactly what a mark tells us and, more importantly, what it doesn't. A positive mark simply means the text may have been processed by Claude. It definitely doesn't mean Claude authored the underlying ideas. On the flip side, a negative mark is not proof of human authorship. Heavy edits, translations, super short texts, and older models bypass this system entirely. The watermark is just a volume filter showing an AI touched the document at some point. It is absolutely not a courtroom-grade verdict of who actually wrote it. Now, before we get into the immense backlash this has caused across the internet, I want to take a quick second to officially say, welcome to TechViewsTenX.com. Seriously, if you are finding this explainer valuable, I highly encourage you to visit the site. TechViewsTenX is where we help you learn tech, leverage AI tools just like Claude, make money, and ultimately grow your business. Staying ahead of massive technical shifts like this watermarking update is exactly how you maintain your competitive edge in this industry. All right, Section 4, Developer and Creator Backlash. Let's look at the code ownership and quality concerns. The reaction from paying professional users has been completely visceral. Take this quote from a frustrated developer on X. Many users view this through the lens of traditional image tools, right? Where paying for a premium tier removes the watermark. But because this is a model-level regulatory compliance mark, there is no premium opt-out. So professionals who rely on Claude for highly confidential internal strategy docs or proprietary code suddenly feel like their workflow privacy is being compromised without their consent. But what's really fascinating here is the technical reality for programmers, which all comes down to a concept called entropy. Prose, like a blog post, has high entropy. There are dozens of ways to phrase a single sentence, which leaves plenty of room to hide a statistical watermark. Code, however, has incredibly low entropy. The syntax is super rigid, variables have to match perfectly, there's almost no room for the watermark to hide. The actual physics of the mechanism mean that running an auto-formatter over your code is essentially an adversarial attack that instantly destroys the watermark signal. Addressing this massive wave of developer panic, an Anthropic engineer actually hopped into the forums and gave this incredibly transparent response. They confirmed the AI agent itself is not even aware it's inserting traces. The watermark happens totally below the model in the sampling pipeline, and they openly conceded its fragility, stating it's not perfect, you can edit it, but it's a first step. So to summarize the core community pushback, we're basically seeing four main themes. First, there's a real fear of confidential documents being flagged in random audits. Second, there's a lot of worry over false AI authorship claims when Claude is merely reformatting human-written code. Third, there is a highly debated theory floating around that this watermarking is actually degrading Claude's output quality by forcing unnatural word choices. And finally, there's a very vocal shift towards open-weight alternative models where users can control the sampling pipeline and bypass watermarks entirely. Which brings us to Section 5, adapting your AI strategy in this new marked content era.
So what do you actually do with all this information? Well, right now, zero. That is exactly how many public URLs currently exist to accurately check for Claude's text watermark. A manager cannot just paste your weekly report into a public Anthropic search box and get a stamp of AI usage today. Anthropic has confirmed a detection API is eventually coming, but until that is officially released, nobody outside of Anthropic can actually verify the text watermark.
So here are your actionable steps moving forward. First, do not abandon your current AI stack in a panic. That output quality shift we talked about is heavily debated and likely super minor for most business tasks. Second, update your team's AI disclosure policies immediately, especially if you fall anywhere near EU AI Act rules. Third, and I literally cannot stress this enough, stop treating AI detector scores as final verdicts of authorship. Get this into your company policy before your first major HR dispute. And finally, fully expect Google's Gemini and OpenAI to follow these exact same compliance standards. Jumping ship won't help you because the entire frontier AI industry is converging right here. Which leaves us with our final thought for today. As invisible AI watermarks become the inescapable global standard for all major models, how are you going to prove the value of your original thought? Will your competitive edge come from the raw text itself, or from the curation, the deep strategy, and the distinct human perspective you bring to the final product? Take some time to ponder how your own workflow holds up in a world where everything gets a digital fingerprint. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer, and we will see you next time.